Hello, everybody, and welcome to Canna.Biz's feature interview segment. It's a new thing we're trying here at Canna.Biz. I am Oliver Twist, and I am here with Stig Bonde of Canna.Biz Industries. Stig, man, for those who don't know anything at all about you, go ahead and lay on us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a medical cannabis patient, and I've been cultivating for 34 years. And what we try to do at Canna Bonde is just provide the best organic medicine we can. And by that I mean we keep it clean, we don't use any chemicals, insecticides, no boosters of any kind. We feed our soil and the soil feeds the plants. So that just gives us a nice clean, wonderful expression of the actual plant. We're not really trying to enhance anything, just letting the plant be all it can be.
And we got a chance to chat a bit outside, and you told me a bit about your personal story and really how you got into this. And I kind of find it fascinating because I think that in this industry, a lot of people have a similar tale of maybe being introduced it to somebody you wouldn't expect. What's your story?
Well, you know, it was back in 1980, I was diagnosed with cancer. It was Hodgkin's disease, stage 3C. It was attacking my lymphatic system. It was really bad. It was pretty advanced. And my oncologist at the time was a wonderful man, a devout Mormon. He was anti-drinking or even coffee. He didn't like any mind-altering thing at all. And I had gone through my first cycle of chemotherapy, and it was rough. I mean, anybody that's been through that can tell you it's horrible. And he was beating around the bush, and he said, you know, marijuana has been shown to counteract the nausea and loss of appetite associated with the type of chemo that you're going through. And he was so shy, and I smiled and says, hey, I like that stuff, okay? And he relaxed. And that's when the light bulb really first went off in me in terms of the medical benefits of cannabis. You know, I'm like, oh, hey, I'm not just some, young guy getting high. This stuff can really do something for people who need it. And it sure did. It was a tremendous benefit to my cycle of chemotherapy, and I actually ended up in a study of a substance called nabilone, which was a synthetic THC back in the very early 80s, and it was horrible. I hated that stuff. I mean, it was nothing like cannabis at all. So that event kind of set me on the path that I've been on now for quite some time.
And it's been an interesting path. It's had its own twists and turns, and you were mentioning some of those things. And I know that, as I find with everybody's past or their journey, I like to call it their journey. Past is such an ugly word. We talk about their journey, man. There's going to be things where it's like it's a part of who we are, not necessarily something we want to get into, but understanding that there have been mistakes along the way, and you've also learned things and become more efficient later in life.
Yeah.
What are some of the early mistakes maybe you made starting out in the industry?
Yeah. I'll tell you, I would tell anybody who is considering getting into cultivation, the very first thing you need to focus on is being able to control your grow environment. That means your temperature, your humidity, your CO2. If you can't get a handle on the indoor environment, you will fail. I mean, I won't even be one of the folks who says, well, it just won't be as good. No, it will not be worth your time. If you really want to embark on cultivation indoors, you need to be able to control that grow environment. And most of the shops are, full of information that can help you along that way. But if you don't control your grow environment, you're going to fail. And I don't care if it's just one light and a couple of plants or if you're doing a warehouse. You need to be able to control that environment. And once you've got a handle on that environment, everything else falls into place. That would be rule number one.
You know what I find, and you come into it from a DIY perspective, which is I think what a lot of people do. But there are tons of things. You can get your books, you can talk to the shop owners, but there's this little niche I like to carve out in life and talk about where it's like the unexpected crap that happens to everybody that nobody tells you about. What are some of those things that it maybe should be in the books? It should be some of the first things that shop owners tell you, but some of those snags that you'll hit along the way that can be, discouraging is the right word, but potentially a setback for some owners where they feel like, crap, I can't overcome this, but really it's just a simple fix and it's just a little thing here or there.
Right. Well, in terms of growing, again, I always go back to environment because you've got to control that environment. And another thing is controlling what you introduce into that environment. One of the things that hits a lot of people, especially in like the Central California area, we see a lot of it, is insects. Okay, your various pests and all of that. So much of that can be eliminated by simply showering before you enter your grow area and donning clean clothes. Okay, don't put on the same stuff. And you don't want to introduce any pathogens or pests into your environment. And I think it all ties in with that. But I see so many people. I just talked to a friend of mine the other day. Oh, I've got spider mites again and all that. And it's like, well, the man lets his dogs run around in there, if stuff like that. Now, am I saying the spider mites came from the dogs? Yeah. I really am. But things like that, we have to be a lot more meticulous than a lot of us would like to be. But if you're going to experience consistent results, you really need to stay on top of every detail. Cleanliness, environment, and of course, great genetics.
And the science, I think, in the cultivation is only one aspect of it. Conversations, even with the guys here and with yourself, I think at the heart of any solid business or even any solid business plan is sort of a mantra that exists within the business owner, a desire that they have and personality traits that help make them successful in who they are. What are some of maybe the more general personality traits that aren't passed on enough that people maybe should have entering this industry? And if they don't have it, they're gonna need to develop it if they want to be successful. Because I think more than even the business side of things, the personal is where people fail getting off the ground. They have no real ability to adjust themselves, and that's the inner failing.
Right. I agree with you. One thing that I've noticed a lack of in this industry, and it saddens me, is the lack of integrity. Okay, you've got to be honest. Okay, if you are not inherently honest, then you better learn how to fake it, because I'll tell you what, if you come across as dishonest to any reputable member of this community, word will spread like wildfire. We're not going to have a darn thing to do with you. So you've got to be honest, and part of honesty, I think, is keeping your promises. Okay, when you go into a new relationship, in this or any other industry for that matter, I believe that we do ourselves a service to bring integrity with us and to mean what we say and to keep our promises. Be a stand-up person. You don't need to be flashy. You don't need to have some sort of cute little hook. I think that when you're providing a quality product, your product will do the talking. And that's what I like to do in my case is I tell the folks, this is what it is, a lab test will bear that out, and deliver what I said I would deliver.
Now, circling back to the business, but also staying with some of the personal, in order to get off the ground, in order to make this sustainable or even a profitable side business for some, there's a level of agency that's required. What steps really did you take when you were first getting off the ground that enabled you to sort of reach a level of consistent business? Was there pounding the pavement, getting out there and talking to people, emailing and phone calls every day?
Absolutely.
What's your process?
Absolutely. Now I'm fortunate enough to, where the people that need to know about me, and they enjoy the medicine that we're able to grow. What I would recommend to anyone new to it would be to really put in your work getting your product, whatever that may be, if it's edibles, extracts, flour, you know, become great at it. And you've got to be honest with yourself. When you produce what you think is the very best that you can produce, put it up against something that is a known winner and see how you stack up. Not only personally to your own opinion of it, but have friends and trusted folks really compare it and be brutally honest with you. Don't have a thin skin and prepare to get your feelings hurt.
And how important is that, man? Because, there's so many things on a personal level that I can relate to what you're just saying. Even the aspect of iron sharpening iron, and putting your product up against the best. In terms of overall business success, how paramount would you say having that dedicated, honest inner group of friends? Because I think a lot of times people, be it business partners, whatever it is, they like to tell us things that we want to hear instead of what we ought to hear. And I find that you can go a lot further in life by having those people that'll pull you aside and be like, look, dumbass, this is that.
Absolutely.
How critical is that?
I agree. Essential. It is essential. Because if you're living in your own fantasy, or if everybody's always just telling you how great everything is, ultimately you are being done a disservice. Because when you get out into the real world and you start bumping into the big boys, you're in for a surprise. Okay, I think that once you think that you're there, and this product in this industry is so subjective. Different patients are looking for different things from their medicine. So you can't, puff out your chest and say, oh, I'm the best cultivator. That doesn't fly. You need to produce top shelf quality medicine consistently that can get, in there with the best of them. And once you're at that level, you need the confidence to be able to go to the various dispensaries and outlets and introduce yourself and introduce your product. I would recommend, you don't show up with, 15 pounds of something and, go walking into some guy's store. A nice little case will be just fine with a few samples of what you can do. And if they're impressed, things will go from there.
It's funny you bring that up and you talk about being the best. I think there's a lot of that going around, and not just even the weed industry. I mean, you're just sitting down watching television. It feels like every company in the world has to tell you that they're the best at something instead of just something being an awesome product. I like the way that you phrased maybe not necessarily being the best, but how much of it, to borrow a different term, people like to talk about championship mentalities. It's not that you have to have a championship at the end of everything. It's that you have to go into it with the expectation that that's the level you're going to give.
Right. You need to be able, well, like in our industry, I immediately go to the cups. Okay, the Canna.Biz cup, chalice, and all of that. Those are wonderful events. I've been, not as a competitor, just as another person in the crowd. And I'll tell you, when we were doing extracts, we had rave reviews on our extracts. I never entered them in any kind of a cup. I wasn't, interested in doing that part of this industry. So what I ended up doing is I actually got out of the extracts temporarily anyway because of that championship mentality. It got to the point where if you went to a club or a dispensary and you didn't have some sort of a cup, you weren't going to be getting rid of any of that. And it turned me off, got me a little sour on that. But I mean, I think that I misspoke because my big thing is flower. I love the plant. I love to produce the very best flower that we can. And when we were doing extracts, a lot of times I was feeling guilty because I'm smashing up all of this beautiful nug and to extract it, where when that championship mentality of at least extracts took over in this industry, I was actually relieved because it was less work for me and I could concentrate on just producing wonderful, wonderful flowers. And most of my friends who enjoy extracts still enjoy our flowers. So.
And how much of that is about sort of, I like to use the phrase being a reductionist because, you know, we like to use phrases like less is more, keep it simple, stupid. Right. And you look at, you know, hearing what you say about not necessarily sour on the extract. We were talking outside about it being one of those things that if you could go back in time, the way you probably phrase that is you would tell yourself to concentrate on the flower aspect. How much of it is really finding what you're good at from the outset and saying, okay, I'm not going to try and be everything. I'm going to try and be really good at one or two things.
Right. I think that really is important. I'm a solid extract artist, you know, but I didn't have the passion, I think, for that I do for the flowers. And it was better, at least in my case, to just really focus on that. I think maybe another person would find that they're really drawn to the extract side of it. And if that happens, hey, follow your passion, you know, do what your heart tells you. But I think it is important to be real good at one or two things and okay at a bunch of things. You know, I believe that is very important.
And I want to get into your setup, but before we get into some, you know, because I like the aspect of looking back on what you would change, but I want to circle back to that in a different way later. You're an organic guy. You love the indoors. You love the setup. Talk to us a little bit about your setup and maybe keep in mind some people don't know, but I think that there are some things that we should definitely get involved for the people who know exactly.
Right. Well, there's different approaches to what is now called organic flower growing. There's hydroponic guys that are using all organic newts and all of that, and I think it does qualify. I'm a little more retro. I grow in organic soil. Essentially what that means is that I feed the soil and the soil feeds the plants, rather than your direct feeding where, boom, you add something and the plant takes it right up. So I grow in what's called an amended or built soil, something a lot of folks may be familiar with. Subcool puts a built soil recipe out there online, really kind of them. And that is a real solid organic soil if somebody were to follow that. Very similar to what I use. I do not use Peruvian seabird guano. That stuff is hideous. It's gross. And I've never noticed any positive difference that it made in the end result, so I omit that. But if you want to use it, it's fine. It doesn't hurt anything.
It feels like one of those things that they tell your wife is going to make her age. Like, it's like those types of products. Right. If you put it on your face, you'll age less. Yeah. No, you won't.
But what we do is we start with, oftentimes it'll be like a Roots Organic is one of the products that we use as a base soil. Empire has a good one as well. And then from there we amend it with things like worm castings, bat guano, all that. I know that Kyle Cushman hates that stuff. He's the anti-poop guy. However, a lot of great organic food and cannabis is grown in that style of organics. And that's what we do.
Now, I know that every grower is going to have tricks of the trade, and those things are proprietary. But what I think is worth asking for people is, I think where a lot of people go wrong is in the experimentation of trying to individualize something and make it their own product. What was the process for you coming by what would be your personal touch? And how would you maybe recommend to somebody that they come about individualizing their product? You know,
a lot of that just comes with a wealth of knowledge and depth of experience. You need to play around with stuff. You got to find out what works, what kind of works, and what really works. And I just, through the years, have gotten more and more things that really, really work that I can just, count on. And I would say that if you're new to it, read your books. You know, I've read all the books. You know, buy Teaming with Microbes if you want to go organic. It's going to open your eyes to a lot of things. And then try things. You know, so often we'll see somebody that says you have to grow at this temperature, at this humidity level, and if you don't, no. You know, there's errors in our instruments, even if it's, you know, the same, you know, CO2 probe that I have might read different than the one you have. It's just an example. You'll find your levels, find your temperatures that are working for you, and then based upon the readings you're receiving, you know, you'll try a run at a degree or two higher or a degree or two lower. As we lower temps, oftentimes you'll see what I refer to as induced purpling, which it really doesn't impress me because I think that I'm causing deficiencies on the other side as far as quality and trichome development. But without getting too technical, I would just say that someone should really, when they're finding themselves, finding their feet in this business, to try things. Don't make big radical changes, okay? I mean, if you're yielding, if you're ending up at the end of your cycle with some weight, you're doing something right. So, you know, you don't want to make a big drastic change from there. What you would want to do, maybe if you say, well, doggone it, I think maybe, you know, I should be getting more trichomes or whatever the case may be, what they're looking for. Research into what tried and true practices seem to help whatever you're trying to get more of, and then apply that gracefully and very small increments, though, because you'll screw yourself up.
Now, one thing that, you know, I like that you mentioned controlling your temperatures, controlling your environment.
Critical.
But one thing that I find can impact that maybe people wouldn't account for is you know, you mentioned environmental, and we talk about being here in Kern Valley. You know, there can be such a stark range of temperatures going from day to night at times.
You bet.
And that outside pressure can actually affect, even though it says, oh, it's this temperature inside, even in newer houses. I mean, we're catching up with what's happening with our weather. And how much of that can affect your yield? How much of that can affect the product?
That is one of the reasons that in my style of organic growing, we run what is called a sealed room. The room is absolutely and meticulously sealed. And we're running a negative pressure as opposed to outdoors. So you better be sealed or you're going to be sucking in all kinds of neat little microbes and pathogens that you don't want. So the short answer, it doesn't. It doesn't affect us at all. I have one operation in a place where in the summertime you're seeing daytime highs of literally 116 degrees. Okay, and then overnight lows will, you know, in the wintertime will get down into the teens or sometimes even the single digits. And the way we construct, we just insulation on top of insulation on top of insulation, sealing like you wouldn't believe. Even electrical outlets are sealed. Okay, because when we fire up those fans that circulate everything, and in a sealed room we're running a large carbon filter, sometimes a series of large carbon filters, and what we'll do is we get that so stable, and this is all done before anything green ever enters that room. We are 100% satisfied that we are in a sealed environment. We're running just a slight negative pressure in there, and we own it. We own our environment. And that is what makes for consistent production.
And that's really the point that I wanted to stress there, because I feel like there can be a tendency of people to enter into situations and you can become over-reliant upon, you know, we say the environment, but you can become over-reliant upon luxuries. You think, okay, I've got a really nice house out here. In theory, in my head, even though I've done all these other preparations, this should be okay because the insulation will hold up. And it's not that they cut costs or cut corners, but in a technical sense, they very much did. And I feel like these are the types of things that when you say control your environment and own the space, this is really what you're emphasizing, this level of detail, right?
Yes, certainly. You need to. The little details are what's going to bite you. Another thing that I've seen happen is people will get comfortable. They'll turn out a few really nice, you know, crops, and they think, hey, I've got this wired, so now they're going to, you know, spend more time at the dunes or on the ski hill or whatever it is. and their product suffers for it. On every turnaround, you have to go in with the same eyes you had when you first built that grow space. You've got to make sure it's still sealed. Things settle. Temperatures, whatnot can cause cracks. So you really need to stay on top of it for light leaks, air leaks, all of that. Because we introduce CO2, that's what the plants breathe. And, that stuff costs money. And the larger space you're doing, the more money it costs. So, sealing is also something that helps you on your bottom line.
And, we talked about things that you may have done differently. And obviously what we're trying to do here with Canna.Biz is create a professional space for growers, vendors, lawyers, marketers, get anybody involved in the industry to connect with other people. Obviously, you talked about started doing this back in the 80s, pre the age, not the age of the internet, but the dominant internet age that we refer to it now, how we think of everything.
Back in the outlaw days.
Right.
I'm not particularly proud, nor am I ashamed of it, because of my strong beliefs in cannabis and its responsible use. But I'll tell you, now guys like me in our 50s, we're a little intimidated by a lot of the new stuff, the digital age and social media and all of that. I did some stuff on social media. Golly, I don't think I've been on my Instagram in over a year. That one is Stig Bonde, my name. And it can be daunting. You might be one heck of a solid grower, but there is so much to where this business is going. It's the Wild West. It's evolving at such a pace that I think someone would be disingenuous to claim to say they know absolutely where it's headed. But yeah, I'll tell you, it's this aspect, this part of it, the whole digital thing, is brand new to me. It's fun.
And how useful is it to at the risk of being a shill here, like how useful is it though to be able to go to a space and to be able to connect with those people right away, where you say, I didn't even realize I needed this until. And I think that as we enter the technological age, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about politics, sport, basically any arena of life is still catching up to technology. Even driving laws are catching up to technology. So I'm firmly with you on the disingenuous part about anybody predicting where anything is heading. But how clutch is it, I guess would be a great way of saying it, to have that space?
I think that it could be wonderful. I'm excited about Canna.Biz because I think that what Canna.Biz is doing is addressing a large hole in this evolving business by letting true professionals to contact one another. So we have a dispensary in city A, and he's looking for a certain product with something like Canna.Biz. Heck, they can just go on there and find somebody like me, I hope. But anyway, so I think that is going to be more and more important as we see this business really take off. The industry, like I said, golly, it's the Wild West. And I think something, like a website like this is going to help bring some professionalism to it, or at least for those of us who are interested in dealing with pros instead of the stoner elite. I think it's going to be wonderful. I've got high hopes for Canna.Biz.
And you look at your product here, Canna.Bonde Premium Dubs, and okay, you talk about moving forward, trying to get it out there. In what way? I mean, obviously we're sitting here doing the interview, and that's, if we're being honest with one another, it's publicity for you, it's publicity for us. I mean, anybody who tries to pull one over on their consumer should be smacked in the face. Everybody knows what's taking place. But in a genuine sense, how useful is something like that for you to push a product like this moving forward?
I don't know if I'm going to go with the word push.
Yeah, that's a foul word. I like to think of pushing in business.
But no, honestly, to let folks know what's out there, I think it is key. I think it's wonderful. When we do introduce something like this, because this is Canna.Bonde's way of addressing something that I've seen a need for. Just in my own experience, I was telling the guys earlier, I got this pre-roll a few weeks ago. I was at a shop, and hey man, here's a pre-roll. Hey, that's great. I took just a couple short hits off of that thing, and I couldn't finish it. It was like so foul. And I think it was just, I was telling my wife, I thought it was floor scraps or something. And I try not to be the cannabis snob, okay? I think that if you have a certain amount of pride and belief in what you're doing, if you're honest, you've got a little bit of it, so I do. But anyway, we got talking, and the pre-rolls that I'm running into in almost every shop are just, I think it's leftovers, and they're not worth having. So that's when we decided, hey, you know what? When we were extracting, we used to bust up beautiful, glorious nugs, and, we would be extracting those. How about we bust up beautiful, glorious nugs and do quality, professional pre-rolls and offer them at a price that, everybody can afford? Because when you get into some of the real high-end, fancy, like the different Magars, if you've seen those, beautiful, but they're very, very pricey. And that's where we came up with dupes, and to offer that as a professional, not leftovers. This is the real deal, 100%. You can bust them open, take a look at it. It's legit. And that was our motivation on the dupes. And I think that an outlet like this is great to let other shop operators and co-ops and collectives see what's going on with us, and there might be room on their shelves for those.
And I think that one of the things that people forget about the business side of things, that it's as much about how you promote the integrity of not just yourself but your business in such a way that it says to the person that you are a person. And because at the heart of this, I think that as the medical marijuana industry moves and grows and sort of adapts to technology, and really the legalization that's going on in the legalization debate, there's going to be a lot of big business that enters this. And I think that at the heart of what people worry about is that the personal touch of the medicine, of the flower, of the people that you're dealing with is going to go out the window for a mass-produced, lower-quality product that costs you more money.
That's it. And the people, the voters in Ohio just recently showed us that the electorate aren't dummies, okay? That what they had proposed, they tried to bring in, it was recreational and medical at the same time. And I'm making up the number, let's say 10, let's say 12 people in the whole state were going to be able to provide, the medicine and recreational cannabis for the entire state of Ohio. Now, the folks from Ohio will correct us on that, but it was a very, very small number. And what we've seen, God bless Colorado. I mean, they're pioneers, but my experience with Colorado has been there's a lot of big money running, and when I say big money, I mean big money, running what's going on in Colorado. And hey, I'm all for folks being successful, but not to the extent where they're squeezing out what is so often referred to as mom and pop operations. I think success is wonderful. I'm all for it. But when you legislate folks who have been providing medical cannabis for decades out of the game, I do have a problem with that.
And I certainly think that even, the thing for me is, why do we keep coming back to the shops that we come back to? What makes us go back to the vendors that we go back to? Why do we consistently stock the same products in our co-ops? Each person in each walk of this game, of this industry, they can all ask a similar question of themselves. And for me, it circles back to, I have have a connection, I have a relationship with that person, with that business, and I feel that when I walk in there, I'm valued, and that the product that I'm getting isn't them saying, oh, this is fire, then I take it home, it falls apart on me, I burn it up in half a day, and I'm coming back early because it's like, look, man, I came in here giving you my hard-earned money, you told me this was fire, I took it home, this thing wasn't even urine that I would use to put out a fire.
Right.
Exactly. And I think that that's really, it can be frustrating for people. How, as you go out there into the world, as you even interact here, how do you give off the impression that that's not who you are, that's not what you're about?
Well, I think it goes back to letting the product do the speaking. I'm a little leery of somebody's, oh, dude, yeah, this is fire, man. Okay, keep it, bro. The medicine will tell you. Okay, the product will tell you. Now, the reason we go back to the same shops all the time, like I say, we've established a relationship with these people, and we know that when we walk in there and they tell us, hey, we just got this new great thing in, you try it out, and every time they've done that, they've been right, because they've been honest with you. There's integrity there. They want you to come back. They're not trying to get $15 off of you and never see you again. What they want is to build a relationship with them. It's honesty. It's that integrity, and I really believe in that when it comes down to this. There are some super slick people in this business, and good for them. But it's really it's not my bag. There's some, okay, cool. Been there, done that. I would much rather just let the product, the medicine, be it an extract, an edible, something like that. And I'll tell you, some of the really, really big companies I think are wonderful, role models for that sort of thing, as far as consistency and integrity and all of that. I'll throw a shout out to Chiba Chews. Yeah. Those wonderful products.
My personal shout out to Venice Cookie Company, man. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, so I mean, there are real deal people who are playing in the big leagues, and they deserve it. They really do.
Yeah, I agree with you. We often hear that phrase "mom and pop shops" thrown around, and oftentimes it can come off as almost a term of derision in the sense of, okay, like they're putting us out of business, you're going corporate, and that's,
you're selling out.
Yeah, like anybody would turn down $1 million, like, get out of here, man, come on, let's be real about success. We all want it, we just want to earn it, and I think that for some of these companies that you mentioned, success should happen to those people because they've gone about it the right way. And I think that when people say they want to keep the mom and pop in it, they're not necessarily talking about the mom and pop, though they do. I think what they're talking about is the personal touch and those relationships that you can get when you're dealing with those people. That's ma and pa. Big business, as we've seen legislated by the Supreme Court, is apparently not a person. So if it's not a person, per the court, it cannot have feelings.
Right.
And in this industry, in this particular, the medical care and compassionate care industry, you have to have feelings.
You do, but here's the problem. A lot of folks who do this don't have $50, $100, $200, $300,000 to do the state legalization buy-in, my little name for it. And the result of that, what you get from that is, who does have that kind of money to jump into that type of thing? If you wanted to, if you were a Colorado native and you wanted to open up a good, string of shops, you better have a lot of money behind you. And I think right there is one of my complaints with what I've seen with what we've been calling legalization thus far. It's just how I feel about it, and time will tell. Time will tell, because I've also seen that there are black markets thriving now in some of those areas that were supposed to be 100% legal and free the weed and all of that good stuff. I think that we need to be careful what we wish for, and we need to be thoughtful in the decisions we make.
It's sort of like when an executive sets a policy that says, in order to become the president, or a president sets a policy that says, in order to become the president, you have to put up X amount of the company, but how many people can then put up X amount of company? Oh, it conveniently happens to be the guy making the rule and like two other people who are never going to oppose him.
Exactly.
It's a self-serving law.
Sure.
Wrapping up here, I want to ask, what, as you look into the future, as you get into your crystal ball, what needs do you see for not just Dubes, but Stig Bonde moving forward in the age of technology?
Well, as we're doing here, I think it's nice to expose the stuff that we're coming up with to people that I otherwise never ever would have the opportunity to do. So I would like to, use social media and websites like Canna.Biz to just let folks in the industry know who we are, what we're up to, and we keep developing things. I really concentrate on flowers, and now with the product Dubes, it's just a top-notch pre-roll that'll stand up to anything. But for the future, I just hope that we can continue to pursue the medical and eventually recreational cannabis markets and be invited to the party.
And I feel like this is almost premature, and I hate asking it, but that's why I say that towards the end, is you obviously have developed Dubes, but in the age of business, it's always, well, you just developed this, so what are you working on?
Well, I'm gonna respectfully decline. We're gonna punt there because we do have some really neat stuff coming up. We've got some neat stuff in the pipeline.
And for those who would like to get in contact with you, for those who want to reach out, for those who want to stock Dubes in their shop, is there a way that they can get in touch with you, an email that they can reach out to, any contact?
The best way right now would be on Canna.Biz. It's Canna.Biz. That's a place for shops and vendors where we can meet and help each other out. I would definitely tell them that would be the best place to contact us right now.
Perfect, man. Well, it has been such a pleasure to not just talk shop with you, but really, I think, to get into life philosophy and business philosophy.
My pleasure.
And also to talk about flower. So, Stig,
one of my favorite subjects.
Stig Bonde Industries, Canna Bonde, excuse me.
That's fine.
Thank you so much, and we will catch you guys next time.
My pleasure.